According to Validity's latest deliverability report, 1 in 10 emails are not accepted by receiving mailbox providers. Deliverability at clients like Microsoft, AOL, Gmail, and Yahoo is 86%, which is higher than the global average. And according to the report, 66% of the respondents said that changes on Apple's platform has only served to highlight greater difficulties in measuring engagement post mail privacy protection. So, what can be done to improve engagement, email deliverability, and other seemingly unimportant or small errors that could have significant upsides? I'd like to explore that with our guest in just a bit. Hello and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success Podcast brought to you by Sproutwith.com. I'm today coaching. Our guest is Ed Forto. Ed, you are a client acquisition strategist who blends cutting edge automation and AI with tried and true tactics of relationship based selling. You, of course, empower companies to achieve consistent and predictable growth in a way that's easy to grasp and implement. And as I was talking to you before, what caught my attention was the fact that you're one of those early entrepreneurs. I think you started at age 14, cutting lawns in your neighborhood. You've
Mhm.
certainly enjoyed sales and marketing. And more recently, perhaps before the pandemic, you had an interesting experience testing out a new outreach platform and discovered that there was a problem with email deliverability, and which led you to start email open rate optimization. I'm curious, could you walk us through what the issue was and what got you to start that service?
Oh, absolutely. And Vinay, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate
Pleasure.
it. It's a great honor for me to be here. I've been doing email marketing for quite a while, all the way back to 1999, where I didn't know I was doing cold email back then. It wasn't called that. I had a consulting firm. We were consulting with the real estate agents and brokers. I had someone who was harvesting email addresses for me. So they would harvest them for me. They'd get them to me in the morning at 10 o'clock. I'd send out a little batch of them. And this is really primitive. I don't know if we talked about this before, but I'd send them out at 10 o'clock. At 10, 10:15, 10:20, the fax machine would start going off. And what happened was they'd get the email, they would reply to the email, and a jerry-rigged autoresponder set up. So when they replied, it sent an email back with a desktop application called Postmaster. So it did things that I had to do things that it wasn't really designed to do. But then it would send an email back to them with an order form. They get the order form, they open the email. That's back when in 1999, 2000, everybody opened emails because they were so novel. We would love to have that situation now. They would get the email, they'd open it, they'd read it, they'd print it out, they'd go fill it out, they go to the fax machine. We don't have those anymore, and they fax orders back to me. And the fax machine was going off within 15 to 20 minutes after I sent that first email. I was hooked on email after that. It was almost like printing money, just crazy. So fast forward till about 5, 6 years ago, I was testing a new platform, as you mentioned, that did outreach, email, SMS, and ringless voicemail. And I was pretty excited about it because it was the first application that did all three. Usually you had to piece these things together.
Mhm.
So it wasn't any instructions. I was a beta tester. I created a 7 email sequence, created the ringless voicemail and the SMS. I fired it up, sent the emails out to 7 email addresses that I own, just so I could see what was happening over 7 days. At the end of the seventh day, I went and looked for the emails and I could not find them anywhere. It's 49 emails going out, none found. I did look in the spam folder and I found one there. So I reached out to tech support and I go, what's going on here? I sent all these emails out and they are not arriving. And they told me they were sent. Go, yeah, but, but that's our responsibility. We send them out, and then what happens after that, we have no control over. That's when I first understood the difference between delivery. And they said they were delivered, not just sent, but they were delivered. They were
Mhm.
delivered to the mailbox provider. But then the mailbox provider then sorted them and thought these are spam or these are blocked and we're not going to show them to anybody. And that's when I understood the difference between delivery and deliverability. And I got involved in this business because a lot of people just had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. Brilliant. And why start a particular service? This a whole idea of email open rate optimization. Is this a wider problem than just the one that you experienced?
It is. It really is. Most people had no idea that when you send an email, it may or may not get delivered. Over 50% of all emails are spam. And a lot of those emails don't get seen by anybody. And legitimate emails get caught up in the net. There's a there's actually a 50-50 chance that your emails will get delivered unless you have all your security records set up and everything's working just fine. I may take our conversation a slightly different direction because since we had originally scheduled our meeting, a few things have happened with
Mhm.
Google made a big announcement about all the changes that's going on with them and on Yahoo, and actually Outlook had been doing this for a little while. It's going to get a lot tougher to send emails starting in the beginning of the year. In fact, I would go as far as to say that cold email is going to be dead for most people that are using it. Like, it's not going to work, and unless they make a change. And the same thing for opt-in email. Unless people are willing to make dramatic changes, it's just not going to work. And we can go that's a topic that we should probably talk about because it is
Mhm.
very topical. It is something that, people need to address right now and prepare for it, not wait until the middle of next year. At that point, they may find that email is no longer available to them. It's a marketing tool.
Sure. I'd love to explore that. Now, to solve this problem, you actually brought in people from a major European email service provider. Is that correct? To help
I
solve
did.
it and start the service. Obviously, it's
Yep.
evolved as you just shared. But as you were offering this service, you began to notice that they also started experiencing a slightly different problem, which led to creation of a new service, a client acquisition actuarial service. I'm curious, how did that come about?
For a lot of clients, when they realized they had email deliverability problems, we fixed those problems. So the emails were actually inboxing, but they weren't converting. And that happens with a lot of people. It's subject line may be clickbait, so people will then open the email, but then it doesn't match the body copy. And when that happens, because you're too focused on getting the email open and it's not congruent with the body copy or the call to action, there's two things that happen. Either they don't answer the email or they click it as spam because they feel like they were deceived. And that is a really big problem for a lot of people is that they're not writing emails that are congruent with their call to action, and the subject line isn't compelling or intriguing enough to get them to open the email. So they've got to do all of those things, and that's a copywriting issue.
So you're specifically helping them with the copy of the email in order to ensure actual deliverability, and of course, people acting on the call to action. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm curious, given your journey today, and you've had a wealth of experience, what would you say would be your personal area of strength?
I'm more of a marketing and sales guy. I got involved in email deliverability because I realized that if I can't get my emails in the primary inbox, all the my marketing and sales skills are not of any value to me because nobody's actually seeing it. And I've been doing copywriting for close to 20 years. Actually more than 20 years. I'm those are my strengths.
Yeah.
But understanding that there's constraints. There's things that you can write. There's things that you can do to persuade somebody. But unless you match that with making sure that you're satisfying the mailbox providers and what they want to see before they show your email to their users, which they consider their clients, they're there to protect them. You have to satisfy both groups. You have to satisfy the mailbox providers, they have to be happy, and then you have to persuade the end user or the recipient of the email. So it's an interesting balancing act, but it's actually fun for me to do. It's a puzzle that I solve.
Mhm. And in that area of strength, what would you say is something that businesses don't know but should?
I think the biggest thing that they don't know or realize is that just because you push send doesn't mean that your email is going to reach the recipient. The assumption is that it does, but there's a good chance, and actually more often than not, it doesn't.
Obviously, with the changes that you're alluding to, you're saying that cold email is dead. First off, why don't you fill us in on what the major changes are, and then tell us why that leads
Sure.
to impacting cold outreach?
I'll tell you the reason why I think that cold email is in the current way that people are doing it is dead, and it's because one of the requirements that Google and Yahoo and Outlook are using, where they had it was already in place, but they didn't really enforce it, was that 0.3% of your emails can be marked as spam, and no more than that. So 3 out of 1,000 can be
Hmm.
marked as spam or they block or your emails are marked them as spam. And that's sets off a downward spiral where now your domain reputation is affected. And so you have a lower domain reputation if you're using an ESP like Active Campaign or Aweber. They see that they're going to downgrade the sender IPs that you're on. So now your sender reputation is lower, your domain reputation is lower, those two combined are going to get your emails either blocked or thrown into the spam folder. We've worked with hundreds of companies that have done the cold email and opt-in email. I can't name one that would meet those requirements right now. Not a single one. Everybody is over the 0.3% spam complaint rate. And
Hmm.
you cannot count on the reporting by your ESP because they don't see all of the emails. You can only count on the feedback loop that you would get from three major mailbox providers. That's Google, Yahoo, and Outlook.
Is that likely to increase the 0.3%? Sorry, 300,000 being marked as spam?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And the reason being, it's costing the mailbox providers money because many people are abandoning their email accounts. Uh, Microsoft, Outlook, and Google run ads in their emails. It's a profit source for them. They're seeing their profits drop because of bad user experience. It's a problem they need to fix. I'll give you a great example for my own personal email box. It's what people will say, this can't possibly happen. I go, "Well, of course it can. And it's a matter of them having the will and the resolve to stick with it when they're going to get some pushback against it. But the resolve is going to be there. And here's the example that I like to give. Uh, a year and a half ago, I was getting 600 plus emails a day to my personal email account, 600 a day. So I started to adjust the filters and I got that number to spam filters and I got it down to about 150 to 200 emails a day. Still a bit high. But then I adjust the filters to what would be similar to what the changes that the three major autoresponders, email mailbox providers are going to do, well, Yahoo, Google, and Outlook. So then the number of emails went from 150 to 200 down to an average of 12.
Hmm.
Now, at first, I thought, well, that's not very many. A lot of them are going into spam. But I adjusted. I knew that if someone sent me an email that ahead of time, and I knew that I didn't receive it, I knew exactly where to go. I went to spam. I went to look for that specific email, and then I moved it over to my primary email account. People will adjust to your emails really fast.
Hmm.
And the thing is, it's a clean inbox. I can see all of my emails at a glance. I don't have to hunt through pages of emails. I prefer it. Even though I'm an email marketer, I prefer it. What people have to do is comply with the new regulations, rules that these guys are going to have. And you need to know how to be one of the 12 emails in that inbox. For those people that can figure that part out, they're going to do extremely well. For the people who feel like this is going to pass, it's not going to be a problem, I assure you, I assure you, they are not going to change their mind. They're going to stick with this. And you've got to figure out if you're going to continue to use email or you're going to use some other medium to reach your people.
Uh, that's interesting. So, what exactly is it that we need to do to be one of those few emails that get into the inbox?
The first thing, let's break it up into two different groups. We'll talk about if you're doing subscription or opt in email. The first thing you need to do is put in place your security keys, your SPF and DKIM security keys, and make sure they're authenticated. The next thing after you've done that is you need to add DMARC. And what DMARC does, all three of these, if you think of it in terms of home security, if you SPF is like locking or making sure your windows are shut and locked. DKIM is locking your doors, and DMARC is like having a home security system. So if the window is broken or somebody breaks down the door, alarm goes off, everything's shut down, the police are called, and they come and take the bad guys away. They are saying that DMARC, which is the alarm system, it doesn't have to be active. It can just you just have to have it, and you don't have to. There's three settings: either it does nothing, it puts emails into quarantine, or it rejects them. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to have DMARC and it not be active, because the whole purpose of DMARC is to ensure that someone didn't hack into your email account and send phishing or spoofing emails to somebody. You need to have that in place. Don't think just because they're saying that you don't, that it's not something that you have to have. They've been checking it for over a couple of years. They're just now enforcing it, and they're doing it pretty quickly. They haven't given people a lot of time. So that's
Mhm.
the first thing you need to do on opt-in or subscription email. If you don't do that, your emails are not going to get delivered. They just simply, and they state that they are not going to deliver your emails.
So, just on that, what would be a good way for people to find out whether it's being activated or not? Because some people may have done it, forgotten all about it, and wouldn't have a clue right now.
The first thing that you should do is if you don't remember doing it, then you need to look into it because you probably didn't set it up right. Uh, Most ESPs have a fast way, an automated way, quick way to set it up and to authenticate your emails. And they're usually with a CNAME record. A CNAME record is not SPF and DMARC and DKIM. I see that a lot with the different email service providers, and people think it's so okay, and it was. 2 months ago, it was just fine. It will not be okay in January. So I would go to demarkian.com, which is a really good service, probably the best one as far as accuracy of your records. Put your domain name in there, check to see what your security keys are, or whether they're authenticated or not. And it'll tell you whether your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC are in place and DMARC is authenticated. If you have DMARC in place, but you do not have it set for quarantine or reject, you need to do that. But understand, if you have any other records that are there, any other DKIM or SPF records that are not authenticated, that will cause your emails to go into spam or be blocked.
Mhm.
So you have to make sure, check with your developer. A lot of people have had more than one developer put these keys in. Maybe they put the keys in. They don't even know what the keys are that they
Mhm.
have. You need to get that sorted out. You need to get it sorted out before the beginning of the year, because if you wait until later, that mistake will cost you your domain reputation and cause you to lose the ability to get your emails inbox to any of the three main mailbox providers. And they control 90% of the mailboxes.
Mhm. Okay. So that's the first bit. What's next?
So for your cold email, you need to do that same thing. But now you have to look at where are you getting your emails. And most
Mhm.
people buy them. They don't clean the emails through a verification service. I would verify them twice. One
Mhm.
of the best verification services out there is clearout.io. I would use that in a second one just to make sure. You only want to send the verified emails, not the catch-all emails, not the ones that are
Mhm.
unknown, only the verified emails, which means that probably half of the emails you buy, you can't use, you can't send.
Mhm.
I would move away from running ads to get emails, right, which is what most people do, both in opt-in and cold email. The reason being is that people on impulse gave you their email address. And by time they've given the email address and push send, they've forgotten all about you. Like
Mm.
maybe you have something you're sending into their inbox. Maybe you have a verification that they have to click for double opt in for your email account, but they've forgotten like seconds
Mm.
after they've opted in. So those aren't that good of leads. Those leads aren't always that active. If they are active, they're not active for very long. You don't really have any type of relationship with them at all. They may see that first email that you sent, say, I don't know what this is. They mark it as
Yeah.
spam. Instead, what you need to start doing is building relationships with people and adding them onto your email list. But tell them that you're doing that. Have them physically opt in. You can do that if you're B2B. You can develop those relationships on LinkedIn. From LinkedIn, you move them to your email. Again, just don't add them to your email address. Have them go to some page where they opt in, give them something of value. And then from that thing of value you're giving them, you extend the information that you're going to give them that's related to that thing of value. So don't give them something that they want, that they opt in for, and then the emails that you're sending have no relationship to that thing at all. It has to be congruent.
Yeah.
And then you can slowly move away to the thing that you want to talk about, but you can't do it abruptly. I asked for this X, and now you're telling me about Z. I'm like, I don't know what Z is. Spam. And it happens just like that all the time. We see it hundreds of times a month. It's
Mm.
you can't do that anymore. You could get away with it before, can't get away with it in the future.
What would be a good example in the B2B space about providing value and getting people talked? And
You could offer a report. I'll give you an example of something that I offer, and I'll do it in two steps. So I have something I call content amplification. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see it as one of the feature things that I have. I give that away. I don't ask for anything in return. I don't ask for an email. I ask for nothing. But I can see who's visited my profile, and I can inquire whether they asked for that. I can match it up with it's a tracking document, so I can match up their location with the location of the person who actually took the document. If they match up, I know, okay, I know this person asked for the document. I can now connect with them, reach out to them. I can ask them what they thought of the document. I can then say, "Hey, I've got some other information related to it. Be happy to send it to you. Here's an opt-in link for it. It's a series of things. Are you okay with that?" They say yes. All right. I send them a link to the page. They sign up. I tell them ahead of time it's a double opt-in, so the next thing won't get to you until you get the notification. You say yes, confirm I want this thing, and then you'll get it. But they don't get it just by opting in. There's no thank you page where they get the
Mhm.
thing. I want them to double opt in. And I want to early on when they get an email from me, I want them to take some action. I want them to click. I want them to reply. And the reason why I want them to do that is because it shows the mailbox providers that that there's some activity, there's some engagement going on between the emails they send and the ones they receive. They're not just opening them, they're engaging with them, they're opening them, they're clicking on them, they're replying to them. They need to see those indicators to determine that, okay, this is an email from the emails from this person are emails that this client wants. And as the more of the clients that I have or their users that open and click or reply to emails, the more trusted I am to that mailbox provider. So I'm more likely to get all of my emails open. If I'm not trusted, at some point they'll say, yeah, some people like him, but most of them don't. So we're going to put his email somewhere else. Maybe it's a promotional folder, maybe it's spam folder, maybe the block. They're going to be a lot more aggressive in doing this now because there's a lot of revenue on the table. The fewer emails in somebody's email box, if you're running ads, like all of them do, their ads are going to be seeing less competition from these marketers that are, you could say, almost stealing business from the mailbox providers. they're taking that business back. And so you're going to see their ad revenue is going to go up by a large margin by mid-year next year because of what they're doing. That's the reason why I believe that they'll have the resolve to follow through with it.
That makes sense. I'm curious. You are offering uh, the content application system. Um, how does that fit into the rest of what you do? Because obviously that's not necessarily the key kind of conversation point that you wanted to have in terms of
Right.
pushing your services. Could you paint a bit of a picture as to how it fits into the larger ecosystem?
Sure. It's I think what you have to do when whatever you're offering is think of the end goal of the user.
Mhm.
My clients want to get more business. You know, part of the part of getting there is to ensure that emails get delivered. But I also know that clients have a couple other problems. They need to have a better quality list of people that they can reach. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems. People aren't going to be interested. They're going to mark emails as spam. They're not going to open emails. They're not going to read the emails. So if I'm going to get them to their end goal, I have to have that consideration because if I fix their email deliverability problem and all their emails are getting in the inbox, but yet they're not making any sales, they blame me because, hey, I'm still not getting any sales. It goes back to the conversation I had with the company when I was a beta tester.
Yeah.
Like, what like, "Okay, you're not getting any sales, so it must be my fault." No, it's not my fault. You've got a bad list, your copy's not very good, your emails are getting in the inbox, but you have to fix these other 2 things in order to get the end goal. So, content amplification is really about the early stages of developing a good relationship with someone that you gotta put on your list. Email now is gonna be more of one-to-one,
Mhm.
instead of one-to-many. And so you put people on your list that you have a relationship with. You do behavioral segmentation to determine like what is it that they want. And then from those segmented lists, you have different messages for different people that match up. The message marks matches the person. So message to market match should be in line. And in order to do that, you have to segment the list.
Right. Okay. Uh, is this going to become more of a actually, manual type manual type approach as opposed to leveraging automation if we are to build these relationships one on one and ensure that we're able to get in front of them in the first place? Because even with places like platforms like LinkedIn, uh, off late there's been a decrease in the reach that they're offering to most people, and that's not just LinkedIn; it's Facebook and a lot of other platforms as well. Uh, Given that stark choice, there's either the fact that we either invest in ads to promote visibility or do more of a tailored individual approach. How would you suggest we go about approaching?
I would choose the latter, a more individual approach. It doesn't have to be very time consuming. You
Mhm.
have to rethink the number of people you have to talk to. We have many people that come to us and say, I want to send 10,000 emails a week or a million emails a month. And I have to stop them and say, why do you want to do that? We need to get a lot of emails out. So they'll say, how big is your market? I can assure you it's not a million. And
Mhm.
I can also assure you there's no way you're going to get a million emails sent and delivered in a month. You'll be shut down way before you get anywhere close to that. So why don't we look at who actually would be interested in what you have to sell? It's a lot smaller than you think. And it's not that hard to reach out to someone once you've identified your real target market and identified what problems they have that they want solved. I desperately want to solve this problem. There's so many different ways that you can approach it. For me, content amplification is just an organic approach to getting in front of the person that you want to get in front of, the ideal customer, and developing enough of a relationship with that person that they're open to being persuaded to work with you. Trying to talk to a lot of people with a generic message just doesn't work very well. And it's absolutely not going to work moving forward because the mailbox providers they've decided we're no longer going to allow that type of thing to go on our platforms.
So, listening to what you were just saying, obviously there's an issue with people trying to niche down on their addressable market and potential audience slash subscribers. Um, why is that, given this day and age and the prevalence of information available around this whole area?
So I want to make sure I understand the question. Why are people getting into tighter niches, smaller niches?
Struggling to get into more focused niche or market
I,
segment.
I think, quite frankly, it's having confidence in the service or product that you're offering and doing the research to identify the actual problems that your ideal client has. It takes some research to do that. It's worth it to do. You're not going to have an option to avoid doing it in the
Mhm.
future, in the near future. Right. We have clients that had been sending 3,000 emails a day out to people. I said, that's just way too much. We could get that down to 10 to 20 emails a day and actually get more appointments if we did that. And I showed them that we did. It was
Mm.
because we tightened the message to very specific people. We looked and identified those people. We qualified them. We used a process that I call it's old fashioned: make friends, talk shop, do business. It's the oldest way of doing business with people that there has ever been. But it's so much easier to do business with a friend. And when you take the pressure off of me trying to sell you something at the beginning, and I'm just interested in what you do, your business, like genuinely interested. I'm not faking it. I have a genuine interest in what you're doing. And that just naturally turns into a shop conversation. It's business people love talking shop.
Mhm.
From there, they will tell you what problems that they have. And then if you have different solutions to the problem, whether they're related to what you do or indirectly related to what you do, you provide those for them. Now they feel like, hey, I owe something to this guy. He's a nice guy. He's easy to talk to. I enjoy the conversation. And this can all be done on DM without much effort at all. And then the transition to do business, they will actually see a lot of times what happens with us and our clients is we don't have to ask for the business. The prospect is asking us, "Hey, can you do this? Or you said something about this thing. You know anything about this? Or can you help us with this or the other thing?" That's a much better position to be in than chasing people to try to sell them.
Okay, that is not a novel idea, but it would seem to a lot of people that it is a lot of work. Because you suggested that taking the conversation further through direct message or DM. Even sending 10, 20 emails a day and then perhaps falling through with some DMs can accumulate and add up very quickly over a week and a weeks later. How do you keep track of all of this and ensure that each message that you're sending is to the point and continuing to add value and take the conversation further?
Sure, there's automation that you can use, more of a CRM for LinkedIn than automated messages that go out. I limit the time that I spend on at least the early phase of the making friends part of the prospecting to an hour a day. So I'll
Yeah.
do my hour, and once the hour is done, that's it. Then in the second phase is either I start the conversation about talking shop because I've noticed something in their business, or they do. And those are easy conversations. You're talking to a friend about talking business, talking shop. It's stuff that we entrepreneurs just love to do anyhow. So it doesn't really feel like work. And there may be an hour of that I do a day. And then from that, I have leads coming in. Some of them, I send them something and then we're talking back and forth about doing business. Sometimes I send them something and they're asking me about, this is interesting. Could you tell me more about this? Or could you help us with this other thing? It's just zero pressure on myself or the prospect. Well, the other person, I don't like to use the word prospect, towards mutually working together to solve a problem that they have.
And is there you mentioned a CRM that you could use in conjunction with LinkedIn. Is there a particular tool that you prefer?
There's one called Break Cold that's relatively new.
Right.
That's a really good CRM, and I enjoy using that. The only problem that I have with it is for it to tell me the most current post that somebody's been doing. What it does is it lets you know what posts they've done. So then
Uh,
you can comment on the post. And the easiest way to start a conversation with somebody is you comment on their post. You have something meaningful about it, but point out something that's different, something that nobody else noticed. I'll give you an example. This is a person that I already knew, but he's a podcaster like you. And I'm looking at his podcast on my phone. The volume is off. All I'm looking at is him and the person he's interviewing. I'm looking at the body language. And what I noticed was he was totally listening to the other person, like, supporting them. And I pointed that out. You do such a good job of supporting your guest. I can see that they feel comfortable. It's in their body language. They feel comfortable with you and they provide a lot of good information because of the way you approach it to your audience. And it was a short message I sent to him. And we got on the phone. We're doing some more business now because of just that comment and something
yeah.
that I noticed. And it's just, it doesn't take long to do it. At first you may struggle with figuring out, well, what do I say? But if you look for the non-obvious thing that no one else is talking about, you mention that you have this like public conversation that goes back and forth, then you move it to DM, and then you move it to email. And by time you have a Zoom meeting with that person, they've already decided that they want to work with you. They just don't know what they're going to do yet. You're going to tell them what your proposal is for working with you, but they've already decided they want to do it.
Yeah. Right. Is there more to the? I'm sure there's different nuances given each type of client you work with, but are there more factors that you find most businesses trip over when it comes to this whole idea of building relationships and growing them in order to get to a point where we can start talking business?
Sure. I think there's two things. The first is you have to look for the right people on LinkedIn. The right people are active on LinkedIn. They are posting on LinkedIn. They respond to other people's comments. Uh, a lot of people that I've worked with, they skip that part, even though I tell them they have to be active on LinkedIn. They have to post on LinkedIn their own content, not reshare somebody else's. 'Cause they don't care about somebody else's
Yeah.
content. They've taken the time to think through and write this content. It wasn't something that they did in a few seconds. They actually have an investment into it. And they have to come back to their profile and look to see who engaged with their content and are willing to comment or reply back to their comments. If they're not willing to do those three things, you don't want to reach out to them. Those are people that you can actually develop the conversation with. So that's the first thing. The second thing is don't sell too fast. Think, I'm making friends. And don't think about I'm doing business. Think, I'm making friends. And then from that, it's very easy to talk shop. I have yet to run into somebody that I've made friends with, an entrepreneur that I haven't talked shop with. Like every entrepreneur is open to talking shop, especially when it comes to their business, the good and the bad. Once you have somebody's trust, they'll dump on you about how bad things are. They'll celebrate with you how great things are. But it's not hard to get into the talk shop part of the business. And then you have to start thinking about where can I help this person? What problems do they have that I can help without going straight there? Just ask. You provide some information. You don't have to pitch anyone at that point. You have your friends, you have their trust. If you've done a good job with your profile, you look credible. They're looking for an expert. If you've done a good job of appearing like you're an authority and an expert in what you don't have to sell them. If they have a problem, if you've done a good job of picking the right people to reach out to, the business comes to you. It is as easy as most people would like it to be. I open my shop and people just come and give me money. It's almost as easy as that, but you have to make friends with those people before they'll give you the money. And people skip the friends part. They go right to making business, you to talking business, or try to do business, and you can't skip steps.
Certainly. We're certainly talked about the relationship building side of things as you grow your network, build an audience, and hopefully get clients. Let's assume that you are doing business with some of these folks. Oftentimes, things can get forgotten once we're in this transactional side of things. Uh, What are good ways to continue to build on that relationship post transaction?
I always have conversations that are more personal with clients. So I'll talk about my life. Which invites them to talk about their life. So it moves that relationship from transactional to more of a friendship. And I think that's really important because if it's just pure transactional, then the lowest price, people will leave you for the lowest price in a second. People will leave you because maybe they're looking to cost cut some things and they'll cut off an essential service to save a little bit of money. You want to be the last on the list to be cut. You want to be the first person that they tell that I'm going through these problems and I'm trying to figure these things out. You're a friend and you help them work through the problems, even if they're completely unrelated to what you do. But maybe through your experience, you can provide them a resource or some direction or some advice to help them get through it. You're going back to the beginning of what I discussed. You're being a
Mm,
friend, you're making friends. If you have clients as friends, you end up keeping them way longer
mhm.
than the average agency does. I think the average agency keeps a client for less than 2 months, which is just crazy. You work hard to get a client and they're gone in 2 months. It's
Mhm.
because there's just no relationship there.
This is fascinating. And are there perhaps a couple of aspects around building relationships or client acquisition that you find doesn't get much airtime? If so, what would they be?
I really think the just slowing things down. Sometimes you'll start doing business with somebody and it's on maybe a low retainer
Yeah.
and you're doing some simple service for them, but you do it regardless of what we do for people. Even we've got some services that are $100 a month, but we report to our client. We pitch things that are bad, we think, and we'll give them advice. From that, they'll end up happily paying us to fix those problems. But they trust us that we're going to tell them the truth, even if it's something they don't want to hear. And I'll say, you're probably not going to want to hear this. Don't be mad at me for telling you the truth, but here's what's going on. And for the most part, they respect that. When others are afraid to do that, but
Mm,
you really have to be honest with your client and take care of them, and at some point, you'll get them to want to do business with you on a larger scale. I've had clients we've worked with for a low retainer for a year, 2 years. And then all of a sudden, there was an opportunity for us to get more business from them because they were going through a problem. And I'll just out of a conversation, it's funny how it happens. I almost say the same thing all the time. They'll discuss this problem that we can solve and I'll stop them. I'll say, wait a second, wait, just so I'm understanding correctly. Are you talking about us doing more business together? Is that what this is? And they'll go, well, yeah, that's the sales pitch.
mm,
That's the close.
mhm.
And a lot of my clients will tell you, yeah, that's exactly how we started doing more business together. That's when we got to from a three-figure monthly retainer to a 4 or 5-figure monthly retainer. It
Mhm.
was a simple conversation that happened like that with me saying almost verbatim what I just said.
Certainly. Is there a particular example that comes to mind that you could share with us where you could highlight problem they were experiencing and end result or outcome that they were able to achieve? With perhaps some figures thrown in to help us wrap our minds around it.
Sure. This is actually a pretty common occurrence. So we'll start working with somebody just doing DMARC monitoring and reporting. and that's $100 a month. So now it's a $200 a month service. From there, occasionally there'll be some things that they need done, like they may need to clean their email list, or may need to fix their security keys. And this is pretty standard. Usually that's the progression of how things go. Sometimes people start more in the middle, sometimes they start at the beginning. Usually they have somebody else doing their email marketing. And then we're just checking to make sure that the emails are getting delivered. At some point, they are dissatisfied with the results of what the other person's doing. Uh, if it's an agency, I know I only have to wait a short time before something occurs. Again, 2 months is how long they stick around. The scary thing is maybe 40% will make a sale in the 2 or 3 months that they're working with the agencies. Most of them don't make a single sale. So
Mm.
for 2 or 3 months, they've been spending money and they've gotten nothing out of it. We have a conversation about, like, what's going on, why isn't this working? And I'll say, yeah, this is what we do. And they'll go, well, then they'll say, "Oh, I wish I could do that, and wish we had this and we had that." There's the setup for my, are you talking about us doing some business together? So we've gone from, say, a $500 a month, which usually sometimes it's just the monitoring that we're doing, $500 a month or $200 a month retainer, to a $5,000 retainer or a $10,000 retainer. And it just like that, it happens. But it's happened because I've worked with them for 6 months or a year or even 2 years, but I've been very consistent with them. Like, they can trust me. They know that I know what I'm talking about. They have confidence that I know what I can do. And although I've been saying they've been running into this problem for the past 6 months or year, I've said nothing. I've said nothing bad about the companies that they've worked with. I've said nothing derogatory about anything that they've done. I've been supportive the entire time, and now it's my shot.
Mm.
And that's a typical way that it goes. Some people just don't have the patience to wait 6 months to get a big contract, but it's going to go to somebody, and why not me?
Mm. So, again, just going back to my original question, what sort of, in terms of figures, obviously it's a retainer for you, increased retainer for you. What sort of outcomes would a client like that experience?
So our goal always is to generate business for the client.
Mhm.
One of the ways that we ensure that that happens, we have skin in the game, and the client feels comfortable with that, is I'll say, well, you'll need to give us a 3 month runway,
Mhm.
meaning I need 3 months to get everything in place. Just don't expect a whole lot in the first month, maybe a little bit in the second month. And the third month, we will have momentum and we can gauge where we are. After 3 months, what we can do is decide on what my monthly commission can be. We can take away the retainer, it can just completely disappear. If we're not performing, then I don't want to get paid. But if we are, then let's figure out what I have to do to earn a commission. Is it appointments or quality appointments? Is it sales that you make on your end? I don't want to do that unless I know you can make sales. But everyone feels pretty comfortable with that. We're going
Mhm.
to switch to more of a retainer mark uh, agreement, a commission agreement. Sometimes it's a blend of the two. Sometimes because of how much it's going to cost, they just keep paying me the retainer. They say, I know it's going to switch to commission, but things are working. I just rather keep you on retainer.
Mm.
And that's perfectly fine with me. Guaranteed money is nice, but we always feel like we should have skin in the game. And I want to make sure that the client understands that we're in this together. And because we have a relationship, we're working to achieve the same goal. And when you approach it that way, it's just a lot easier to get a client. Plus, you've already built the relationship. It's a lot easier to keep a client. See, there's mistakes are going to be made. You make a mistake, something happens where they might normally fire somebody. You have a bit more leeway with that client because your goals are aligned with theirs. They can say, like, this person is actually working with me to achieve the goals that we have set. And it's important that they believe that and you actually follow through.
Mhm. Thanks for sharing that. And to wrap things up, if you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
Takeaway is start preparing immediately for sending email. None of this stuff that we talked about is going to matter if you don't have your house in order before next year. One of the big things, which I didn't mention, which is going to be key, is looking at your metrics and know what your open rate is. You know what your reply rate is. You need to know those numbers cold. Don't worry about the open rate. It's the response, the engagement you need to have in place. So when next year comes, you know what your base is. You know what you need to do to get within the numbers that the mailbox providers are requiring that you meet. And if you don't think you can get there on your own, hire someone to help you to get there. Because
Mm.
if you're not achieving those numbers, you're not going to be able to use email as a marketing.
Sure. Okay. And if listeners are curious, want to find out more or connect with you, where would you recommend they head to?
LinkedIn is the best place to find me there. And in a week or two, I'm going to have a newsletter coming out that's going to be talking about the changes and what you need to do, what you need to have in place for the changes to come. And then the newsletter will extend beyond that. I think it's probably going to be called Inbox with Ed. But from there, it'll be a weekly newsletter that comes out that will keep people informed is what's going on and what they need to do a week to ensure that they're inboxing their emails, because the ones who are able to are going to see big increases in business. All the
Mm.
ones who don't are going to have to find another marketing medium to get their message out.
We'll include links to that in the show notes. Ed, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a pleasure.
It's been my great pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for being so flexible and rescheduling. I appreciate it.
Cool.